There's something silently sabotaging your frequency. You feel it. You try to think positively, visualize the best, repeat mantras, but the field doesn't respond. Days go by and nothing changes. It's like shouting underwater. The words come out, but the sound doesn't reach anywhere. The body vibrates at one tone, the mind at another, and the universe only returns noise. The truth is that the field around you doesn't understand effort, it understands coherence. And while you force it, it remains silent. Waking up tired, even while sleeping. Feeling that something invisible is out of alignment. Acting correctly, but the world doesn't reflect it. This friction between intention and reality is the sign, the warning that the field has lost its harmony. It's in this interval that many give up, believing that nothing works. But what if the problem was never what you do, but rather how you vibrate while doing it? Imagine your energy as an instrument. If one string is out of tune, the whole sound loses its meaning. You can play the same melody 1,000 times. The sound will be the same until you adjust the pitch. The same thing happens within you. Thoughts are notes, emotions are vibrations, breath is the rhythm. If one of them goes out of rhythm, the universe hears dissonance. What would happen if, for 24 hours, you were in perfect alignment? Not with complex techniques, but with an almost imperceptible adjustment, a small deviation that changes everything. It's possible that time will slow down, that people will react differently, that coincidences will begin to align. And not by chance, but by response. Perhaps reality isn't something you should conquer, but something that's already trying to talk to you. The problem is you're talking too loudly to hear it. There's a quantum frequency that reorders chaos, but it doesn't appear in noise. It emerges when body, mind, and emotion breathe in the same rhythm. With each breath, the field adjusts. Each pause is a choice. And the instant the right rhythm emerges, the universe begins to move around you, as if it had always waited for just that, coherence. You don't need to make any more effort. You just need to remember the sound of your own harmony. And it can rewrite everything in just 24 hours. Perhaps the loudest noise doesn't come from outside, but from within. The mind wants to race, the heart wants to stop, and the body, lost in the middle, merely obeys impulses it doesn't understand. You wake up already on alert, as if you needed to reach something invisible before the day ends. Everything seems urgent, but nothing really moves. And that's where the misalignment begins, not in the big decisions, but in the small, forgotten breaths. The field around you registers everything. Every emotion, every thought, every hesitation. It is as sensitive as the surface of a lake, and when its waters are turbulent, no image is reflected clearly. What you call bad luck, stuckness, may simply be the distorted reflection of a mind in turmoil. Because while the body sends signals of urgency, the universe does not distinguish between fear and desire. It simply returns what it receives, frequency. Think about how you breathe when you're anxious. The air goes in shallow, comes out heavy, and your chest feels too small to contain the world. Now imagine that pattern being transmitted all the time, a constant message saying, "I am at war." It is this vibration that shapes the subtle matter around you. And it repeats until something inside you remembers the silence. Silence is the true code of realignment. Not that forced silence of someone trying to silence thoughts, but the silence that arises when you finally listen to the rhythm of your own body. When air flows in and out effortlessly, and the heart follows, the field understands, the chaos is over. There is order again. There is coherence. And it's curious, this moment doesn't require anything grand. Sometimes it happens in the middle of a cold coffee, or between messages, when you take a deep breath for no reason and feel something adjusting inside. As if the whole world had been waiting for that single breath to reposition itself. It's an almost invisible instant, but one that changes the course of the day. Many feel this here. The urge to stop, to breathe together, to leave a sign that something has touched them. That's why so many choose to stay, following each revelation. Because, somehow, they know they're not just watching, they're remembering. And as the body begins to adjust, a silent question arises, one that doesn't come from the mind, but from the field itself. What changes when you decide to breathe from the inside out, and not the other way around? Sometimes, the misalignment is so subtle that it seems normal. You go through routines, answer messages, smile at people, but inside there's an uneven vibration, like an off-key note that insists on playing in the background. It's an almost physical sensation, an invisible weight between the chest and throat, as if something is always a little out of place. The body keeps going, but the soul stumbles. And the most curious thing is that the world responds to this. Small delays, conversations that get lost, decisions that slip away by millimeters. Everything seems to run sideways, as if time doesn't flow on the same axis as you. And the more you try to correct it, the further away it seems to get. It's like trying to hold water with your hands. The effort, paradoxically, accelerates the loss. There comes a moment when the mind realizes that control is the obstacle itself. That the more you try to force the course of things, the more the field hardens, reflecting exactly the tension you project. Reality doesn't oppose you, it merely mirrors what you vibrate. If there is fear, the world contracts. If there is confidence, it expands. It's simple, but it requires something few actually do: stopping the internal movement. This is where many become frightened. Because the silence that arises when one stops fighting is not comfortable. It is vast, almost cosmic. And in it, everything that was hidden begins to emerge. Old thoughts, memories, inner voices. It's like turning on a flashlight in a room you avoided entering. But it is there, exactly there, that the realignment begins, when what was once shadow becomes visible. You feel your body resisting. It wants to act, wants to run, wants to solve things. But there's something deeper, a presence that observes everything, that simply breathes. And when that presence takes command, the chaos reorganizes itself. It's as if the universe is waiting for you to stop trying to beat the rhythm, to finally dance with it. Light and darkness are not enemies, they are pulsations of the same field. With each breath, you draw closer to the light. With each breath, the shadow is revealed. It is this movement that sustains reality. To resist it is to resist life itself. There's a point where your breathing slows down on its own. Your heart follows suit. And, for a brief second, everything seems suspended. No sound, no hurry, no fear. Just the feeling that something invisible, yet familiar, is about to reveal itself, as if the air has a message you haven't yet been able to decipher. Perhaps what we call alignment isn't about achieving a perfect state, but about remembering the natural movement between imbalance and harmony. It's like the sea, never still, but always returning to its center. The difference is that we humans forget to return. We get caught in the wave, trying to control it, and we confuse the turbulence with the whole. But there comes a moment when something inside you gets tired of fighting the current and simply lets go. And it is in this letting go that the field begins to reorganize what seemed lost. Have you ever noticed how certain days seem to breathe along with you? The light enters through the window in a different way, time seems to expand, things happen effortlessly. And then there are others, when everything tightens, the noises increase, and each breath seems like a reminder that something has become disconnected. The difference between one and the other is not in the circumstances, but in the frequency you are at. When the body vibrates in coherence, reality responds with gentleness. When it vibrates in tension, the world mirrors resistance. But there is beauty in resistance as well, because it shows where something alive is still trying to align itself. No part of you goes wrong when you fight, it just forgets the rhythm. And when you observe without judgment, the body begins to remember. It is at this point that many feel the impulse to support this journey, to leave a silent sign, almost like a wordless "I understand." A simple gesture, but one that vibrates with silent gratitude. Imagine, for a moment, that your life is a great field of resonance. Each thought is a note, each emotion a chord, each breath the measure that holds everything together. When one of them is lost, the entire sound becomes confused. But just one sincere note, a single conscious breath, is enough for the melody to begin to reconstruct itself. It is the return to the center, to the original sound. Sometimes, the universe isn't asking you to change anything, just to listen. To perceive the tone behind the noise. To feel the pause between one emotion and another. Because it is there, in that interval, that reality rewrites itself. And when you begin to breathe from a deeper place, you realize something subtle. The world doesn't need to be pushed, it needs to be remembered. Life has always wanted to flow, it's you who, for so long, held your breath. Now, something begins to open within you, and the field seems to listen. But there is still something hidden, something that only reveals itself when the silence becomes total. There is something almost sacred in the instant when silence settles in. Not that cold, empty silence, but the one that carries presence. The kind that seems to suspend time, as if the entire universe were tilting its head to listen to what you will do next. It is in that space between one thought and another that the frequency adjusts, and the invisible begins to respond. Fear, however, always tries to fill that gap. It seeps in like an ancient whisper, telling you that you need to act, that something will crumble if you stop for a second. And it's easy to believe it, because the body has learned to confuse stillness with danger. It was trained to survive, not to feel. But what fear doesn't know is that there is more power in a calm breath than in 1,000 desperate attempts at control. Have you ever felt that moment when your heart beats slower, the air flows sweetly, and suddenly the world seems to slow down along with it? It's as if all of reality breathes in your rhythm. Colors become clearer, sound softer, the weight of your body disappears. This is the field's first response, a silent confirmation that alignment has begun. But this harmony is fragile. A single thought of doubt, a memory from the past, is enough to break the flow. That's how the mind interferes again, trying to translate into words what can only be felt. And the more you try to understand, the further you drift away. Because coherence is not a concept, it's a state. It cannot be explained, it is embodied. Between hope and fear lies only a breath. A simple choice: inhale what does not yet exist and exhale what no longer serves. It is in this ebb and flow that the body relearns to trust, that the field reorganizes itself, that time begins to fold around its inner state. Imagine yourself standing before a body of water. The surface is calm, reflecting the sky. But just one restless thought, and the image dissolves. You could try to control the waves, force the reflection to return, or simply wait. Because water always returns to equilibrium when the wind tires. Perhaps the secret lies not in creating new realities, but in letting the old ones cease to exist through lack of resistance. And at that point of silent surrender, something invisible approaches, not to be understood, but to be felt. A light, almost imperceptible vibration, announcing that the next revelation is about to emerge, as if the very air were beginning to glow from within. There comes a moment when the silence begins to become unbearable, the point where the calm reveals more than the noise ever did. That's when many give up, because, instead of peace, they find mirrors. Mirrors of everything that was postponed, avoided, forgotten. Each breath becomes a lantern within the body itself, illuminating old cracks. And the more you observe, the more you realize, the misalignment was never in the world, it was always within. The mind wants to escape, but the body knows. It holds onto the memories that thoughts try to erase. A weight on the shoulders that was never just physical. A tension in the stomach that speaks of something undigested. A rush in the chest that comes from an unfulfilled promise. Breath touches all of this, like water finding cracks in stone. And, little by little, what was hard begins to soften. At that moment, something changes in the perception of time. What once seemed urgent loses importance. What was once invisible takes shape. It's as if the clock stops dictating and begins to listen. Life no longer runs against you. It accompanies you, step by step, as if waiting for you to finally walk at the same pace again. But the duality remains, subtle. One part of you wants to surrender, trust, expand. Another wants to protect yourself, maintain the familiar. It's the dance between gain and loss, between the fear of falling and the desire to fly. Each breath is a silent choice between the two worlds. To inhale is to be born again, to exhale is to die a little, and perhaps that is the oldest wisdom of creation. Light and shadow do not fight, they complement each other. The mistake is believing that only light is destiny. There are days when brilliance comes from surrender, and others when it comes from darkness. Because it is in the dark that the field prepares to emit a new signal. It is in the depths of silence that the sound of coherence is formed. And when the stillness becomes so profound that it seems alive, something pulses differently in the air. An almost imperceptible vibration, as if the universe were breathing along with you. It is at this exact point, between emptiness and emergence, that the field rewrites itself. But it still doesn't reveal what comes next. It lingers, like a secret on the verge of being spoken. A premonition that something immense is about to happen, and the air seems to hold the answer, suspending time before the next breath. When you begin to breathe mindfully, the field responds. It's not something immediately visible, but it manifests in subtle ways. Conversations that flow better, improbable coincidences, tiredness that disappears for no reason. It's as if the universe, which previously seemed distant and chaotic, begins to adjust its rhythm to match yours. And that's where most people are surprised, realizing that reality was never an obstacle, but a mirror. Every action, every emotion, is a signal sent to the field. And the field, patiently, reflects back your vibration. When you act out of alignment, the return comes back truncated, disordered, full of noise. But when coherence is established, even what seemed out of control begins to reorganize itself, like dust slowly settling back to the ground. Life isn't trying to punish you, it's trying to show you where dissonance still exists. Imagine a room full of out-of-tune instruments. Each one tries to impose its own rhythm, and the result is noise. But as soon as one instrument finds the right tone, the others instinctively begin to align themselves. The same happens with your field. When you find inner coherence, everything around you adjusts, even without conscious effort. People draw closer. Opportunities are reconfigured. Time seems to cooperate. But the process is not linear. With each advance comes a test. A delay, a misunderstanding, an old fear that reappears, not as punishment, but as the final reflection of everything that still needs to be dissolved. And it is at this moment that many return to control mode, trying to force the flow. But the field doesn't understand force. It understands frequency. You can observe, the gentler the gesture, the more powerful the response. A small adjustment in breathing, a moment of presence before acting, can change the outcome of an entire day. It's almost imperceptible, but real. The return comes in the form of synchronicity, that email that arrives at the exact right time, the unexpected message, the feeling that the world is listening to you. Perhaps that's why so many feel called to share what they perceive, as if expressing themselves were an extension of their own alignment. Each insight, each memory or sensation becomes part of the collective field, expanding the signal. And, ultimately, this impulse to record what one feels is not vanity, it's resonance. A silent way of saying, I noticed it too. The field doesn't need words to recognize what vibrates in harmony. It simply responds. And, the instant you notice this subtle reciprocity, this invisible dialogue between your air and the universe, a new, almost inevitable question arises. How far can this frequency go if you decide to maintain it? There comes a point in the process where alignment begins to take its toll. It's not punishment, but purification. The field, now more sensitive, no longer tolerates noise. Everything that previously went unnoticed, automatic thoughts, small lies, mechanical habits, begins to weigh heavily. It's as if the very energy around demands transparency. What is not coherent dissolves. What is true intensifies. And this can be disconcerting. Because when the frequency rises, life changes tone. People drift away. Situations that seemed solid crumble without warning. And yet, there is a subtle serenity, as if a part of you knows that it's not about loss, but about purification. The field doesn't remove anything out of cruelty, it only erases what no longer vibrates in the new rhythm. Imagine a vibrating string. When the sound is pure, the surrounding air harmonizes. But if there is interference, the string itself vibrates until the noise dissipates. Consciousness is similar when it begins to resonate clearly. Sometimes harmony hurts, because it reveals where we were out of tune. And it is at this point that the true test presents itself, remaining present even when the echo of the old still tries to call back. There are moments when everything seems to become quieter, almost empty. It's the interval between the old and the new, the space where the field decides what remains. And it is there that many become confused, thinking that silence is absence. But silence is never empty. It is the womb of creation. It is the interval in which the universe breathes before returning the answer. Each day lived in this state of heightened awareness is a new mirror. Small coincidences begin to align with almost unsettling precision. You think of someone, and that person appears. One path closes, and another emerges, with a smoothness that seems rehearsed. There is no effort, only synchronicity. And yet, there is also a kind of vulnerability that grows, because the more sensitive you become to the field, the more you feel the weight of each choice, each word, each breath. The field doesn't forgive carelessness, but it rewards presence. It doesn't demand perfection, it demands coherence. And coherence is living in the same rhythm as what you want to create. It's not a practice, it's a state. An invisible pulse that adjusts itself as you recognize it. And when that recognition deepens, the world seems to change texture. Time slows down. People look at you differently, even without knowing why. There's something in your presence that communicates without sound, like a melody that the entire environment begins to follow. But the mystery is not yet complete. Something inside you senses that the field is about to reveal a new level, more subtle, more demanding. And in the air, that same suspended breath from before lingers, as if the universe were ready to take the next step, waiting only for yours. As the frequency stabilizes, something silent begins to change. It's not visible as an external transformation, but perceptible in the way time observes you. Things seem to happen before you ask for them. There's a discrete order that emerges from the chaos, a hidden intelligence that organizes the improbable. And yet, in the midst of this harmony, fear tries to resurface, as if a part of you still doubts deserving such fluidity. It is at this point that the field becomes more demanding. It no longer responds to impulse, but to intention. It no longer echoes what you desire, but what you truly are. And being, now, is no longer a light verb, it is a vibrational responsibility. Every gesture, every thought, every word becomes code. And the field records everything. There are days when the light seems to recede. You feel the weight of the old world trying to regain control, as if the shadows of the mind were whispering again, "Go back to the safe, to the known." But the truth is that the known was never safe, only predictable. The mind calls stability what the heart recognizes as prison. And between these two poles, the body becomes the mediator, sustaining the tension between what wants to remain and what needs to be born. Imagine yourself walking on a glass bridge over an abyss. Each step demands faith in the unseen. The ground seems too thin, and the vertigo is real. But as you move forward, you realize that the glass doesn't break, it strengthens beneath your feet. Because the field doesn't support those who hesitate, it supports those who surrender. And in this surrender, a new clarity emerges. The fear, which previously seemed so great, reveals itself only as an absence of presence. The doubt was merely the echo of the past, trying to exist in a time that no longer recognizes it. Progress has never been linear. It is a spiral. And each turn of this spiral brings back the same themes, only at a different frequency, lighter, more conscious, more integrated. There's something poetic about this repetition, as if the universe were testing how much light you can sustain without running away. And the more you sustain, the more it trusts you. Small signs confirm this. The peace that arises for no reason, the answer that comes the exact second you let go, the encounter that couldn't have been a coincidence. But the field also observes the interval between responses. It wants to know if you remain consistent even when the silence lingers. It is there, in the space between the request and the response, that true alignment is forged. The void is not punishment, it is training. And when that realization settles in, something within you changes forever. Because you finally understand that there's no going back. The old rhythm no longer fits. Breathing is now different, more conscious, more sacred. But the mystery still pulsates, like an unspoken promise, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And then, when everything seems to calm down, you realize that alignment isn't a destination, it's a pulse. A living movement that flows through you and renews itself every instant. There's no finish line, there's breath. There's presence. The field doesn't transform all at once, it refines itself in layers. With each coherent choice, it becomes clearer. With each conscious pause, more real. And suddenly, the world no longer seems outside of you, it moves with you. There's a moment when everything aligns. The sound of the air, the rhythm of the heart, the silence between one thought and another. It's brief, but absolute. And in that instant, what was once a search becomes a memory. Because you recognize, the state you were looking for was always here, hidden between one breath and the next. It's the frequency that creates, not the desire. It's the internal rhythm that defines the external. But this understanding doesn't come as theory. It's felt, like a gentle warmth in the chest, like a silent unraveling in the body. as if the universe itself were exhaling through you. And it is at this point that fear loses its function. Because you understand that there was never separation, only noise. That there was never waiting, only distraction. That the field doesn't respond with delay, only with precision. You begin to move differently. Words come out with more intention, your gaze remains more steady, time seems to obey a different rhythm. Small daily decisions become gateways, choosing to breathe before reacting, to give thanks before asking, to observe before judging. Alignment ceases to be something you try to achieve. It becomes the natural way of existing. And it's curious how the world reacts to this. People start to feel something, even without understanding what it is. Projects accelerate, meetings multiply, the flow reorganizes itself. Not because you manifested it, but because you stopped the noise that prevented the signal from expressing itself. Coherence became a bridge. And this bridge connects the invisible to the tangible. Each person who encounters this state carries a spark of it forward. A contagious vibration, silent and persistent, like a fire spreading across a damp field. And perhaps that's why, upon arriving here, you feel the urge to stay, not to understand, but to remember. To remember that the field responds to presence, not to haste. That silence also speaks. That the universe listens better when you breathe. So, if something inside you has stirred, if you felt the call, the pause, the recognition, leave a sign. Not out of habit, but out of attunement. Write a word that describes what vibrates within you right now. A simple but conscious gesture. Because every clear intention reinforces the field. And as the sound of your own breath echoes, the alignment continues. Invisible, constant, sacred. The field never sleeps. It simply awaits your next breath to begin all over again.